the chosen one. This message did not find you by chance. God has brought you here for a purpose. This is not just about money. It is about the heavenly heritage you have always held in your soul. The riches you're acquiring is not a prize for finally being good enough. It is a ceremony associated with your status as God's chosen. For far too long, you felt that riches was something to pursue. But God is going to reveal you. It has always belonged to you, not for your ego, but for your mission. Let us break this down thoroughly and spiritually into 7 tremendous chapters. Before we delve in, please like, share, and subscribe. Because this message is more than simply a video. It's a heavenly awakening for the selected ones who have finally realized that riches is a birthright, not a bonus. If your spirit resonates, type in the comments right now. That number is a prophetic code. Heaven's method of verifying that you're connected, positioned, and prepared to accept what has always been yours by inheritance, not via hustling. This message is not for everyone. Only the genuinely selected will realize the truth. If you stick with this term to the conclusion, layers will begin to reveal clarity, confidence, and assurance that your days of scarcity are ended. And don't just listen once. This isn't just surface-level inspiration. It's a heavenly download that will disclose more when your soul revisits it. So play it as many times as your spirit prompts you to, since your legacy is contained in these words. And heaven is speaking right to you. Let us plunge. Chapter 1. Your spiritual DNA contains heavenly richness. The chosen one. Before taking your first breath, before you understood anything about money, success, or survival, a heavenly blueprint had already been penned for your existence. A blueprint created in heaven's throne chamber, rather than by man. You were born into prosperity, not by chance, but on assignment. Your whole being bears the hallmarks of heavenly richness. This is not about consumerism. It's about identity. It is about spiritual royalty. You don't need to seek money since you were born into them. Your Father, the universe's creator, has everything he needs. No peace, no power, and no provision. And since he is your source, you're not supposed to live a life of lack. The world's initial blueprint included no provision for need. Broken institutions and spiritual warfare are intended to keep you tiny. But here is the reality. The adversary does not want you to realize that you were never supposed to beg for what you were created to bear. Attacks on your financial situation, thinking, and confidence. They weren't completely random. They are computed. They were strategic. Assault from hell. To prevent you from knowing who you really are. A dispenser of heaven's wealth. A transporter of heavenly resources. A conduit through which the kingdom of God will benefit successive generations. And the world attempted to persuade you that prosperity is just for the privileged, and that you must work tirelessly for crumbs of what was already inscribed in your heavenly inheritance. But God is now taking down that deception. Riches, particularly supernatural riches, is not a bonus. It is your birthright. That is not to say that you will constantly have large sums of money in your account from the start. It implies you will walk in a state of favor, knowledge, and miraculous flow that attracts and maintains success in all forms. Wealth may be financial, relational, spiritual, mental, or emotional. Because when God blesses, He does not only bless your money, He enriches your life. You were not picked to live paycheck to paycheck. You were not picked to always strive and settle. You were not picked to be fearful of the future or dread provision. You were picked to construct, to establish and expose the glory of God via overflow. That's why He put you through seasons of scarcity, not to break you, but to instill compassion, strengthen your stewardship, and develop your soul. You learned to cherish what money cannot buy. You learned to contribute even if it hurt. You complimented with an empty hand. And now you're ready to accept with a mended heart. The new season isn't about prestige. It's all about service. It is about being trusted with more. Because you've proven your loyalty with less. The prosperity that is coming will not just raise you. It will enhance everything and everyone associated with your objective. Get ready. The chosen one. The bonds of generational poverty are dissolving. The attitude of scarcity is being challenged, and the reality of your divine riches is emerging. You're not here to survive. You're here to multiply. You are not here to envy the fortunate. You are here to be the gift. You're not here to shrink. You came here to grow. And it all starts with this: recognizing that heavenly riches was programmed into your DNA from the beginning. No more uncertainty, no more delay. It's time to walk like air. You are not to brag, but to build. Not for ego, but for the kingdom. Not only for you, but for future generations. This is not exaggeration. This is legacy. Welcome to your awakening. Chapter 2: Poverty was a circumstance, not your identity. Let's make it plain. The chosen one. Poverty was a chapter, not a calling. It may have been your circumstances, but it was never your whole tale. You were born on a battlefield, not a burial yard. Despite your difficult history, your spirit has always been one of royalty. You may have grown up with hand-me-downs and hard days. You may have seen your family scraping by, counting money, and praying simply to get to the next meal. But even as you went through the valley of need, something within you knew: this isn't the end. This is not who I am. You may not have known how to express it at the time, but your soul rejected poverty as your identity. You were not created to celebrate suffering. You were not meant to continue cycles of just enough and never enough. There was never a term for lack. It was a test, a desert trip to sharpen your vision, fortify your faith, and anchor your character for the coming river of prosperity. Poverty is a circumstance, not a covenant. God never intended for you to normalize your lack. He tolerated that for a while, but He never established it as your standard. He allowed you to sit in it for long enough to acquire eyes capable of distinguishing between trash and knowledge. You learned to make the most of limited resources. You learned to pray without stopping. You learned to give when you didn't have much to keep. These aren't merely survival strategies. They are spiritual riches. You may have been neglected in the global economy, but in God's kingdom, you were being purified. Let us be honest. Poverty attempted to attach itself to your thoughts. It aimed to shape your self-worth. It intended to persuade you that money was for them, not you. That your calling has to be met with ongoing battle. However, your spirituality was only proved by suffering, and you picked one. Let's break that falsehood right now. Your value was never dependent on your pocketbook. Your identity was never tied to your salary. Your calling was never intended to be hindered by limitations. God never receives glory from your failure. He gains glory from your rescue. You see, the adversary was after your thinking more than your money. Because if he could persuade you that poverty is sacred, he could keep you out of the kingdom. You were created to manage these resources. If he could trap you in survival mode, he would be able to prevent the vision caused by overflow. But not anymore. You've made it through the fire without smoke. You've stayed devoted even when others gave up. Now that you've praised under pressure and sown through storms, God is changing the whole environment in your life. No more celebrating the battle. No more romanticizing scarcity. No more playing tiny. When God has asked you to take on a big leadership role, you are not here to flaunt your misery as a medal. You've come to walk in authority, like an emissary from heaven. The wilderness teaches you appreciation, discipline, and humility. However, God is now utilizing those teachings as the basis for legacy. You are not schooled in scarcity in order to survive. You've been schooled in scarcity, so you may educate others how to flourish when their breakthrough occurs. You will construct houses, companies, ministries, and movements with purpose rather than pride. You'll finance ambitions and change generations because you understand what it's like to go without. And now God knows you're prepared to handle anything. Chapter 3. You were put to the test with a lack. Now you will be trusted with money. The chosen one. The reason you are now wealthy is because you have passed exams that most others are unaware they are taking. These are not performance testing. They were tests of heart position, while others were looking for applause. You were pursuing alignment while others were developing brands. You were developing silent obedience. And while the world ignored you, heaven kept notes on what you donated when it hurt and sown when it would have made more sense to keep your tithes. When you could have spent the money on yourself. You assisted others while you were in need. Those are not just random acts of compassion. They were spiritual examinations. And when you departed, heaven saw it all. The tears behind the seed, the sacrifice behind the grin, the times you didn't share online because you weren't doing it for the attention. You were doing it for the covenant. You did not serve only to be seen. You served because it came naturally to you. You did not donate to be blessed. You delivered a blessing. Others gave you delight. That is why, in this season, God is putting greater faith in you since He knows you are trustworthy. This next wave of prosperity is not a prize for being fortunate. It is an acknowledgement of your loyalty. He does not bless at random. Rather, He blesses righteously. And what you are about to get is more than just cash. This is confirmation. Confirmation that the nights you wept were not wasted. Confirmation that the seeds you cultivated in secret are now bearing fruit in public, proving that your stewardship in times of adversity was worthwhile. Let us be clear. This riches is not just for you to enjoy. It is up to you to deploy. You are not obtaining wealth to hoard. You are getting building materials. Bless and birth the kingdom vision. And God knows He can trust you to execute it correctly because you will not worship it. You will invest it. You will not flaunt it. You'll use it to fuel your cause. You will not transform it into a deity. You will utilize it to honor God. Many individuals covet money but have not passed the hard exams. They haven't learned the value of a little. They haven't gone through the furnace of not enough. But you did, and that is why your hands have been picked to carry so much. God is deliberate about His favors. He does not only pour out money. Where there is ambition, He brings it where there is alignment. And you, chosen one, are aligned. You've been honed through lack, not destroyed by it. You have been humbled, not hardened. And you've shown that you don't merely seek riches. You need wisdom to handle it effectively. This is not about consumerism. This is about the mission. You are being elevated both monetarily and spiritually. Because God understands that your character can now bear what your prayers have been praying for, and your increase will help more than just you. It will lift families, communities, and perhaps generations. So don't be startled when unexpected doors open, divine connections appear, and resources pour from areas you didn't anticipate. It's not luck. It's not a coincidence. Divine faith is being rewarded. You were put to the test with a lack. You remained devoted even when it was difficult. You passed while no one was watching. God now trusts you with money, not because you pursued it, but because you were willing to bear it. And this is only the beginning. Chapter 4. God is going to bring kingdom riches into your life. The chosen one. You can feel it, right? There is a stirring in the air, a spiritual movement flowing under the surface. You may not be able to express it in words, but your soul knows something big is changing. And this is the reality. You aren't merely observing the transformation. You are part of it. God is preparing for kingdom transfer, and you have been selected as one of the vessels to bear it. This is not about acquiring instant fortune for the sake of vanity. It is about heavenly resources for vision. It is not about luxury. It is about legacy. The riches of the wicked, influence, opportunity, land, and platforms. The access has been saved for you. The righteous. And the moment for the heavenly transfer is nearing. What was once locked up is now being freed. What was previously kept back is now being diverted to those who are aligned, designated, and honed. You went through the testing season not only to be cleansed, but also to become certified. God has seen your stewardship in the desert. He has seen your obedience. When things didn't make sense. In quiet times, He assessed your motivations. And now heaven has declared its hour. But don't get things twisted. This is not just about money. This is about the handover of kingdom infrastructure. God is going to provide you access to locations where others have attempted to deny you ownership of things. Your forefathers were denied land that would bear your family name and serve as a legacy plan for building what has never been constructed before. The vision is to lead with clarity while others are confused. Generational chances to break the cycle of poverty and spiritual stagnation. God does not provide you with resources based on your personal position. He's resourcing you for prophetic purposes. You're not being provided tools to flex. You've been given the necessary tools to repair what is broken. This is about reconstructing shattered cities, repairing barren areas, and regaining what evil attempted to take from your lineage. You're being asked to fund dreams, to establish schools, to start companies that employ the underprivileged in order to create safe havens, to support ministries, and to raise future fighters who will never know the shackles you had to shatter. And guess what? This is something that the opponent is also aware of. That's why the battle intensified as you came closer. However, no weapon constructed flourished because your mission is too important to be diverted by distractions. This is not about becoming wealthy. It is about accumulating enough resources to spark a spiritual and cultural revolution. You are not being fortunate due of luck. You are being positioned based on your lineage. You are carrying mantles that demand resources. There are prophecies over your lineage that need supply, and the coffers of heaven are now opening. God is putting resources in your hands because He believes that your heart is in sync with His. You're not after gold. You are bearing glory. You aren't seeking to be noticed. You want to develop something that will endure past you. You are not asking for money merely to live comfortably. You want to be a good leader. Chapter 5. Your wealth is linked to your task, not your standing. The chosen one. Let us be clear. You were not picked to flaunt. You were picked to fulfill. This path is not about gaining influence, attention, or validation. It is about executing a divine mission, which requires resources, reach, and accountability. The riches that is entering your life is not coincidental, and it is certainly not a prize for image. It is a necessity of your task. God does not finance egos. He finances the purpose. You're not getting promoted, so others may appreciate you. You are being raised so that others may be reached via you. The increase isn't limited to your table. It is for every table. God is inviting you to grow, expand, and encourage others to sit at this strategic level of supply. It is sacred. It is specifically matched to your task. You'll get ideas that need funding. You're going to have visions that need room. You'll be asked to create systems that demand structure, personnel, and strength. And for that, God is bestowing money not to enhance your image, but to carry out your influence. You are not a resource hoarder. You are being given resources to heal. This is why you had to suffer through those years of scarcity, those dark seasons, those times when you have high goals but little money. God was humble. Your motivations, honing your why, and developing your character so that when the opportunity arises, it will not corrupt, but rather create. You were never asked to compete. You were summoned to finish the task, and that endeavor requires divine financing. This money is arriving to nourish individuals who are looking for more than just food. It will clothe people who have been bereft of their dignity. It is coming to finance shelters and assist single moms. Start mentoring programs. Backward kingdom movements. Send children to school and interrupt generational poverty cycles once and for all. You aren't here to be a billboard. You are here to serve as a blueprint. That is why your money is linked to your task. Because if it was about status, you would have had it years ago. But God withheld it until your character was strong enough to bear it. Now you view money as a tool rather than a prize. You see influence as a duty, not a pedestal. You perceive platforms as altars rather than stages for performances. And as a result, God is opening the gates. The divine vaults are opening up connections, customers, contracts, financial flow, land, knowledge, and partnerships. They're all lined up not because you're pursuing it, but because it's chasing you. Assigned to you. I'm drawn to your obedience. Your life is about to demonstrate something to the world. That purpose and affluence are not incompatible. They are divinely partnered. You are entering a season in which others will look at you and see proof that, yes, you can serve God, be genuinely spiritual, and yet be financially prosperous, emotionally balanced, and generationally effective. Because God isn't just interested in your soul. He is interested in your management and riches. It is a kingdom trust, a heavenly deposit, and a sacred obligation. And God picked you to bear it because He knows you would not squander it. You will multiply it. You will pour it back. And by doing so, your legacy will be defined not just by what you possess, but also by what you enable. Chapter 6. The enemy fears a wealthy, chosen one. The chosen one. Hear it loud and clear. The adversary never feared you for being spiritual. He was afraid you were spiritual and powerful. He did not panic when you prayed. He frightened when you realized the strength of your prayers. He did not quiver as you fasted. He shook as you paired fasting with concentration, intelligence, and heavenly plan. Because when a chosen one is anointed and resourced, everything changes in the spirit world. The enemy's biggest dread is a believer who moves beyond survival mode. Why? Because survival mode distracts you. Broke and reliant. It keeps you battling for crumbs, doubting your value, and narrowing your perspective. When you achieve actual kingdom riches, however, you get influence. You enter the realm of dominance. You assume power that cannot be controlled or manipulated by the enemy's systems. A rich chosen one is harmful since you no longer have to make sacrifices to eat. You no longer have to sell your voice to be heard. You no longer need to collaborate with a global agenda to succeed today. You become the agenda that you create. You're responsible for your own finances. You begin writing the rules in places where you were previously excluded. You begin unlocking doors for those who have been shut out. You start reconstructing what previous generations could only dream about. This is why the adversary battled you so hard for your cash. Not because you were greedy, but because he recognized your hands as sacred. He knew you'd bankroll the revolt. Not an illusion. He understood your fortune would not stop at a residence or an automobile. It would conclude with a movement. So, yeah, you were being attacked. You weren't weak, you were just waking up. And now that you've entered the realm of heavenly wealth, you're becoming what hell has always dreaded. A moving sword, a walking conduit of supply, and a divine distributor of heaven's riches. You're no longer waiting for opportunities. You make them. You're no longer waiting for doors. You construct them. You no longer function from a position of scarcity. You cause the command overflow. Your riches is no longer only a desire. It is a weapon. It silences oppression. It cancels debt, not just yours, but others. It frees families. It liberates minds. It breaks generational curses. In addition, there is the adversary. He is scared because he knows that when a chosen one stops seeking money and begins directing it with divine order, bonds are broken, territories change, and darkness loses territory. This is why you are under pressure. That's why your money were constantly a battleground. Because your breakthrough was never only about you. It was about systems. God is preparing you to disturb the schools. You will create the ministries, finance the enterprises, and give birth to the lives that will be transformed. You were never a danger when you were shattered and burdened. You become a danger when you walk in divine affluence, have kingdom vision, and are the chosen one. You're there now. Chapter 7. This is not a season. It's a conscious decision to change identity. Pay careful attention. What you're about to embark on is more than simply a thrilling experience. This isn't merely a transitory breakthrough, a fleeting gift, or a favorable turn of events. No, it's not a season. This represents a transition, a transformation, a heavenly enhancement to your identity, environment, authority, and assignment. This is the point when you stop visiting plenty and begin living in it. Everything is changing, not just in your surroundings, but also inside yourself. Because God is not just modifying your circumstances. He's altering your capability. He is regenerating your thoughts. He's improving your outlook. And He's providing you fresh instructions on how to handle the riches, favor, and responsibility that's been unleashed into your life. You are no longer acting just for survival. That battle, identity, the one who anticipated doors to shut was the one bracing for disappointment. The one who was afraid of overflow due to the unfamiliarity. That identity is separating. You are being reintroduced to your genuine self, chosen, royally resourced, and anointed for effect. You aren't shifting in response to shortage. You're making strategic moves. You do not give out of a lack of resources. You are contributing from a legacy. You aren't expecting for a miracle. You are a miracle. The change isn't external. It is internal. When your identity evolves, your surroundings must adapt as well. This explains why things seem foreign. Why are some individuals drifting apart? Why do you no longer connect with locations or habits that used to seem normal? Because they were associated with a version of yourself that no longer exists. You have passed over. You have developed. You have been uplifted by obedience. Resistance refines and grace matures. You're not pursuing money. Money is being drawn to your cause. You're not asking for assistance. Divine connections are attracted to your brightness. You don't question whether you're worthy. You were born for this because it is not a matter of chance or time. It's about identity. You were never an imposter in the country of plenty. You were always the legitimate heirs. The world just attempted to persuade you differently. But paradise is restoring your memories. You are a child of Most High God. You possess heavenly favor. You've been tasked with not just succeeding, but also establishing mechanisms that recover or resurrect others and free them from bondage. So, no, it's not a season. This is who you're becoming. This is the point at which riches transcends mere numerical value. It reflects your totality, alignment, obedience, and divine stewardship. This is when you stop waiting for a breakthrough and begin living as the breakthrough. So Rise picked one not with pride, but with purpose, not with fear, but with fire, not with ego, but with greatness. This is your shift. This is your moment. This is your mantelpiece. Heaven is not just observing. Heaven is supporting you. Step into the overflow, not as a visitor, but as the heir, because you were not designed to dwell underneath. You were born to rule. And now the world will see what heaven already knew, that you never strived after plenty. You embody abundance.